talk about the Chicago Bears. Everyone is hoping that they pull out a win over in Detroit. We know that is where Ben Johnson spent some time, obviously. And apparently there's going to be a boo fest. And joining us now is our digital sports reporter, Chris Kay, to break this all down. Chris, who's doing all this booing?
You know, at first it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is a former Ben Johnson protege in Detroit that he helped coach up a little bit when Ben Johnson started as the passing game coordinator, worked his way up from quality control to the offensive coordinator. He's the star receiver in Detroit, and he said this on his podcast. He has a very prominent podcast in the NFL world with his brother Amon-Ra St. Brown, former Chicago Bear. They were talking about it like, hey, what's going to happen? He's like, we're going to boo him. No, we're going to boo him. And I think I don't know if it's one of those things in jest. I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, well, let's see what happens. But Amon-Ra is a pretty funny guy, and I think he's looking forward to the chance to beat Ben Johnson's team on Sunday.
You know, obviously Detroit fans, they are really diehard before they started, having some good seasons, because we have to admit that they have had some good seasons over the years. I used to live out in Michigan. People were fans when they were not winning. What do you think the fan reception will be like in terms of the fans in the stadium when it comes to the Bears?
I think in terms of Ben Johnson, I think he's going to get a very favorable reception. I think he's going to get a little bit of the love that he showed Detroit. He was asked this on Wednesday in his opening press conference of the week. He was like, hey, how do you view the tough decision that you made? And he's like, well, it was tough for me. It was tough for me to leave something that I built in Detroit. It was tough to leave something that loved me as much as I loved it. He was really paraphrasing, or I'm paraphrasing a lot of those words, but he was talking a lot about how difficult it was, and I think the fans are going to recognize that. I think the fans are going to give him the love he deserves, because there's no Detroit Lions of the 2024-2023 timeframe where they're winning the NFC North Division without Ben Johnson.
Both of the teams are coming off of that Week 1 loss. Obviously, as a Bears fan myself, I want us to win this. Who really needs this win more? Just looking at, probability here, statistical numbers.
Ah, goodness, it's a tough question, because you don't want to lose.
Yes, you don't.
I think if you're the Detroit Lions, I think the pressure's on a little bit more, because you came into this season as the reigning division champs. You came into this season with so much expectations on your shoulders of, hey, we could be the team that runs the NFC North for the next handful of years. And I think so far it's been difficult to look at that Week 1 game against the Packers and say, hey, this is the team that's sitting atop the North, because right now it is the Packers, unfortunately. Sorry for all the Bears fans that don't want to hear that, but they made the right moves. They made the right personnel changes to put them in a position to dominate right away. And kind of similar to what the Bears did in 2018 with Khalil Mack, with Micah Parsons coming into the division. That's not fun. Can't imagine it's fun blocking Micah Parsons. I can't imagine it's fun also guarding a lot of the players that they have, trying to tackle Josh Jacobs. But I think right now the Lions need a win. They need to get back on track, especially within the division. I think the Bears are an opportunity to do that. But also, conversely, if you're the Bears, this is Ben Johnson's old team. If you're a Bears player, I'm sure you want to be like, hey, let's get one for our guy. Let's get one for our guy against his old team. Let's show him that, hey, we can move past whatever last year was into what we have now.
Looking at the numbers, especially when you're talking about historically, the historic outlook of all of this, the Lions have dominated the Bears in the past. What do you think needs to change up, for this game coming up to change that? In terms of our running game, our passing game, what do you think needs to change?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you have to start with the mistakes that have just come on hand. And when I was in the locker room yesterday talking to some of the players, I was asking specifically, like, hey, how do you get the run game going? Because that was a point of emphasis on Wednesday when Ben Johnson talked about it, saying, I need to call more runs. But I think in the locker room, we were talking to some players. They said, hey, we just got to cut down the penalties, false starts, holding, the things that draw us backwards. And if you watch the game, I know there are some of those penalties are kind of like, that's kind of a ticky-tack foul. I don't know if that would be a hold on every Sunday, but I think in this specific instance, the false starts, the things that happen before the snap, taking timeouts to prevent the delay game, those are the kinds of things the Bears want to cut down. And I think The first quarter, I think we saw a lot of that, but that's because you script the first 15 or so plays, and you saw a lot of that come to success right away, and that's really impressive. That's also something that we didn't see a lot of last year, but we also saw a lot of false starts, holding, a lot of those penalties that racked up along the offensive line. But I think if you talk to the players and you go all the way down, they say we got to be better, we got to be cleaner. I think it starts with being clean. And I think we'll see a little bit of that reflected in the game plan on Sunday.
You know, you bring up a good point about the false starts. I was watching the game, and I'm like, this is like amateur stuff. This is stuff that you get a penalty for, you know, when you're a little earlier, I would say, in your career instead of like NFL level, because it was so many of them that it was really hard to watch. So that's a really good point. Let's talk about this. St. Brown obviously has a huge influence in Detroit. We were talking about his comments about the booing. Do you think the fans will kind of get on board with this? And this will be like a stadium-wide thing that we may hear coming from the stadium.
Yeah, I think it might be one of those things where we might get a mixed bag. I think we'll get a little bit of like, hey, like you have to give the guys props because this is a dude that, if you know his story, his background, this is a guy that was out of football in like the 2019 timeframe, then found his way back to a quality control job, which is quite literally the grunt work of football. It is one of the low man jobs where you have to kind of do whatever you can to prove that you have a future in the business. And Ben Johnson did that in Detroit. He did this in that franchise when back then, I mean, really, the Detroit Lions weren't anything worth writing about or even worth thinking about. But I think a big part of the rise was Ben Johnson. I think we'll see some of the props be given properly to Ben Johnson for that. But I also think the fans are going to have a little bit of fun with him, especially in the third quarter, maybe the fourth quarter. Depending on how the game goes, obviously, if the Bears are up in the fourth quarter, I think they might have some choice words for Ben Johnson. So I think it'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to think about, and we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be a good game. I think much better game than we've seen in the past, especially when you go back to the December game with the Bears and Lions, where the Lions were clearly the better team and kind of ran all over the Bears.
You know, it's interesting. The Detroit Lions fans can be really brutal. But, you know, Detroit so close to Chicago, I'm expecting to see a lot of Bears fans in that stadium as well, because we do travel very well. If you had to give a prediction on the game, I know a lot of people don't like to do it, but I like putting people on the spot. If you had to give a prediction of the final score, what would you say here?
Goodness. It's tough because, and I appreciate you putting me on the spot. Thank you for that. But I think it's tough because we really don't know how these teams are going to respond after week one, because both had disappointing week ones, where the Bears being up 11 on the Vikings and the Lions that just kind of were never really in the game against the Packers. And I think Ben said it perfectly on Wednesday too. Like, this is going to be a much improved team in week two compared to week one. And I think they're going to start getting their feet wet. And with both teams, first year with new coordinators, there's a lot going on that they have to figure out. But I think right now the experience might be the thing that wins out. I think it'll be a lower scoring game because the offense still is a little bit behind the defense in both regards in both teams. But I think it's tough. I think the Lions are probably going to win this one like a 20-17 type of game.
Oh,
It'll
Chris.
be close. I hate to break your heart, Tia. I really do.
The dagger in the chest. I only say that because, no, go ahead. Finish your statement, and then I want to bring up something. Go ahead.
Oh, no, but I think this Bears offense needs just another week or two to really get its feet under it, and then we're going to start to see some of the improvements and a lot of encouraging things.
Okay, so since you said that, which is very hard to hear as a fan, you know, we watched Caleb Williams really started out really great. We got to admit that. It was pretty impressive. And in fact, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I turned off the TV because I was like, okay, we got this in the bag. I'm done. I'm going to bed. And then I was on Twitter and I saw, oh, it's not looking too good. So I went back to watch the TV. And I was really, really heartbroken and disappointed. And then all the fans said what we always hear is, you know, don't put too much faith in the Bears, right? We hear that continuously. Caleb Williams in particular started out really great. It didn't keep going that way. What do you think he has to do in this particular game to really prove himself, to really keep his job? I mean, at some point, if it doesn't improve, it is the potential that his job is on the line.
Yeah, I'd like to come out right now and like say this just definitively, no matter what happens, unless we start seeing him be the reason the Bears lose games, that his job is going to be in question. I don't think there's anything that happens this season that puts Caleb Williams' job in question, and I think that's important to know because this is a guy that, you mentioned it, the first drive that he had was 6 for 6, 51 yards passing with a rushing touchdown. He was literally perfect. And then you come out the rest of the game and you start to see some of the accuracy issues here and there. Those are the things that I was mentioning earlier about this offense, where they need a couple weeks, maybe another week or two, to really get their feet wet, to understand how things move properly, how to get into that rhythm, because they were just disjointed. They were out of a rhythm. They weren't looking like the offense that we saw that Ben Johnson was running in training camp. When things really started clicking, there's a couple practices where like, hey, like this could be something, especially if they get into a rhythm, they get into what they want to be. But I think right now, he's not going to lose his job. I think he's doing just fine. The way that people were talking about this game, you think he threw 5 interceptions and lost the game 40-10. He was in the game. It's all about finding the rhythm. It's about establishing the run game, playing that complementary football. I think no matter what, Caleb's in a good position. He looked fine to me. I thought he was good on Monday. I think there's a lot of other things on that offense that could help him out a little bit more. But right now, I mean, give it about 2 more weeks to you. I'm telling you,
it's hard to be patient as a Bears fan. It is. It's hard to be patient because you want to see the team win, and then every season you go into an optimist. It's kind of like what the Cleveland Browns have been going through for quite some time. I lived there too, watched that play out, and it's like every year you want to be optimistic for the hometown team, and then the ball literally drops.
I think there's a lot more to be optimistic about with this Bears team and what they have on this roster right now, from the top down, from what we saw on Monday night to what could be in the future. I choose to stay optimistic, and that's not just because I'm a Chicagoland guy. From what I've seen in training camp, I think we're going to see a lot of great things, especially out of Caleb Williams. I think he's going to set some Bears records. The Bears have not had a quarterback as talented as him, period, point blank. They've had better quarterbacks probably, but this guy is one of the most talented quarterbacks the Bears have ever had. I think that's going to start to reflect in the stat sheet and also in the record books as the weeks start to go on and he starts to get more comfortable in this offense. He starts to build that rhythm, because when he's on rhythm, I tell you, it's like
you're making me feel good. Keep talking. I'm feeling real good. As you keep talking, you're making me feel better. Let me ask you this. What do you make, really, this may be my final question, but what do you make of that short turnaround? Because it was a really short turnaround for the team to have to bounce back.
It's tough. That's one of the things about the NFL, which is so difficult, especially when you compare it to all the others, the types of football. Obviously, high school football plays on Friday nights, and they maybe sometimes play on Saturday mornings. And I think that's not that different of a time frame. College football only usually plays on Friday nights, Sunday nights, the first week of the season. Then it's very strictly restricted to Saturday. The NFL is different. The NFL, you're supposed to expect to be professional and be ready and be prepared, especially for those Monday games, for those Thursday games, what comes after that. It would be a lot better if you had a Monday night game going into a bye week, or a Thursday game coming out of a bye week. But I think those are the kinds of things that you have to prepare for as a player. I think the Bears are beaten just fine. They really didn't have that many injuries coming out of that Monday Night Football game, which is a big thing. But I think right now the biggest thing we're going to keep watching is what's Kyler Gordon's status and what's TJ Edwards' status coming off of injuries that were before the Monday Night Football game. So I think going forward, it's a shorter week, but the players know how to handle it. That's just what they're paid to do, and they do it real well. And I want to make sure I heard this correctly, because with all this optimism, you still think the Bears will lose. I'm just double checking. You still think the Bears will be the losers? Is that right? I'm just saying, any given Sunday, that is the reason they say that, is because no matter what happens in football, it could be your day. Caleb Williams could throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. We don't know. We'll see. About to find out. We'll see. Yeah, and the game, just so people know, is happening Sunday right on Fox 32 Chicago. Tip-off is at noon, so make sure you tune in. Chris, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Oh, Tia, it's a pleasure. It's always to talk to you. I appreciate it. It really is. All right.